Today I'd like to show you the exhibitor management system in Tabletop Events. To enable it, go to Convention Tools, Exhibitors, and then Enable Exhibitor Management. Now, there are a bunch of settings that we can set. For example, if we have terms and conditions, which we always do, we'll put the URL to that document here. And we can set a maximum number of booths per exhibitor if we want. So if each exhibitor is only allowed one booth, we could set that. Or maybe they can have any combination of 3 booths. 0 means that they can have any number of booths that they would like. We can also add in some custom fields for their application. For example, maybe we want to know what their company motto is. And we'll make that a text field. Let's make that required. And we'll call that done. So now we can move on to the next step, which is creating booth types. In our convention, we're going to have a normal booth and we'll have some corner booths. The corner booths will be double in size and cost quite a bit more. Let's just do standard as our first booth. And for this booth, we can give a description. This is our standard booth. It comes with one table measuring 6 feet by 30 inches and 2 folding chairs. And we can set the price of the booth to whatever we like. I think 200 sounds good. This will be a 10 by 10 booth. And we're going to include 2 badges with this booth. Let's go make it a full weekend badge. We could of course create an exhibitor type badge if we wanted to and include that. We can also add options. Extra chair, do that. 1 human sized chair for sitting. And the price of each of those, let's say we charge 10 bucks, and let's go ahead and say how many they can add. For that smaller booth, they can have up to 2 extra of those. We could add additional options, but I think that's good for now. So let's go add our corner booth. And again, these are going to be much larger. This is an odd-shaped booth, so it doesn't really fit quite into our dimensions, but we'll mock it up a little bit. We'll say 20 by 20 here, but then what we'll do is we'll go up here and say this is an L-shaped booth. You get 30 square feet of usable space. So that way we can tell people, oh, this is a weird shaped booth. And then again, we're going to make weekend badges. For this one, you can have extra chair. They could have an extra table depending on how they lay it out. They could have internet access. Also, maybe for these bigger booths, we'll also add 110 power outlet. So we've gone ahead and we've defined our booths. You can see that we have 2 booth types here defined. So now we can go on and define our rooms. We already have a number of rooms that were defined by the scheduling system. Maybe we're going to take over part of one of those rooms for exhibit hall, or we could add our own new room. This one we'll call the Uptown Ballroom, because that's what it's called in our facility. This is our exhibit hall. And then we can upload a map image, and you should in fact do this because that way people know exactly where the booths are when they're looking for a specific vendor. Also, the vendors will know when they're trying to select booth spaces, what are they looking for. So we highly encourage you to design one of those, and so I have designed one and I will upload it here. And so now it shows us a nice little picture of our map for everybody to do. Now, we recommend using 3-digit numbers or higher for your booth designations. You could use letters too if you like. It's very common to use numbers for this sort of thing. We recommend 3 digits because the system will sort the booth names alphanumerically, not numerically, because this can have alphabetic characters in it. So it would be 1, 10, 11, 12, up through 19, and then it would go to 20. So if you start this at 100, then they're all alphanumerically sorted correctly. We can also define zones. For example, in our map here, we have aisles. So we might want to use our aisles as zones. Zones allow us to subdivide the room and say that only specific vendors can go on this side of the room when we approve them. This will allow you to, for example, if you want to make sure that two comic book stores are not in the same aisle, you can go ahead and put them into different zones. Or if you want to create a comic book zone, then you could create a zone just for that to ensure that all comic book vendors go in the same place. Lots of conventions have these kinds of zones. For example, at Gen Con, you would see something like the Family Fun Zone. And so all of the games that are targeted toward children are in a specific area. There's also Artists Alley. There's an entrepreneur zone, that sort of thing at these different conventions. So this is where you would define those. In our case, I've defined our map as having two aisles, so I'm going to use the aisles as my zones. These are completely optional. You can forego them if you don't care about zones. So aisle 100 and aisle 200 will be my zones. Again, that goes right up here to our map. And then we can start defining our booths. We've got 100, 103, and 105. These 103 and 105 are our standard booths, where 101 is a corner. So we've got that, and that's in aisle 1. And then 103 is a standard booth in aisle 1. 105 is a standard booth in aisle 1. And you can see it's very easy to just keep adding more and more of these. Boom, and boom. That covers our booths. You can see that they are all currently available. Once exhibitors start getting slotted into these spaces, you'll be able to see exactly who is slotted into those spaces. So let's go ahead and move on to the next section. We defined our ballroom. And actually, if we go back to the rooms layout, you'll now see that the Uptown Ballroom has 13 booths. 0 of them have been sold, but we have 13 booths defined. So this is an easy way to see, how you're doing with selling off your exhibit hall space. So then we can start looking at exhibitor applications. We don't have any at this point, so let's go ahead and simulate an exhibitor application. We would need to open exhibitor applications to do this. You can see there's a shortcut to get back to the settings right here. So now it is pending, therefore there's no menu up here for exhibitors to apply. So I'm going to go ahead and open exhibitor applications now. And so we can suspend those at any time. Once we close them, that is permanent, so you don't want to do that until you're done. Keep in mind that booth sales are completely separate from exhibitor applications. So we can open up booth sales and keep that open longer than we open exhibitor applications. So that way we can build up a few exhibitor applications. If we have some dropouts, we can build those up, close off exhibitor applications, and then booth sales are still open, so exhibitors can still add on chairs, or if there are still booths available, they can co-opt some extra booths, that sort of thing. We now have an exhibitor menu here. We can see the available booths. Again, this shows us our map. Should our map be something that is unreadable at this size, if we had a really big exhibit hall, for example, it would get shrunk down, or if we're on a mobile phone, we can just click on that image and we get a zoomed in version of the map, so we can really get in and look at the details. Now on this map, that's not really that important, but it's there. And then we can see all of the booths that are available to us as exhibitors, and we can see who's exhibiting so far. We do have to apply to be an exhibitor, so I can click on that link, or I can go to apply to exhibit. Either one does the same thing. We need to create a new exhibitor application. First thing we need to do is put in our company name, and let's just say Big John's Comics. I agree. So whatever exhibitor terms that you have linked back in our settings are linked here now, so that they could go read those terms and make sure that they comply. This checkbox is saying I agree to those terms. They cannot start the application without agreeing. So that takes us to the actual exhibitor application. Now if I have a website, I can fill that in. Big John's Comics. And we made motto a required field, so we do need to fill that out. Otherwise, the exhibitor application will not allow us to continue. So I'll go ahead and do that. The best comics and board games in town. Do that. Actually, we'll just do John Smith, 111-555-777, big at bigjohns.com. We do need to upload that logo. It doesn't need to be precisely 2,000 pixels here. They can upload anything. We're recommending 2,000 pixels so that way you have a print-ready version of the logo for any kind of printed materials that you might put out, such as signage or a program guide, any of that kind of stuff. We're requesting that it's a very large logo we can easily use, so I'm going to go ahead and upload a logo that is exactly 2,000 by 2,000. It doesn't have to be. We also resize it and create a smaller version that is used on the website. So then we continue on here and fill out our exhibitor description. This is the kind of thing where they could copy and paste something out of a Word document or from their website. Big John, they want a history section, and so they say that's a header, and so it will show them a preview with the header and all of that kind of stuff. Let's go ahead and submit our application. The application is now pending, and we need to wait for the organizer to approve our application before we can do anything else. At this point, you, the organizer, would get an email saying that Big John's comics are waiting for you to approve them, and you can find that under Convention Tools if you go into Exhibitors. And you'll see that we have one pending application. So this works exactly like the approval process in the event submission system. So for example, we go, Big John's comics, I don't know, maybe let's review that later. And so that goes into our in review queue. We can make edits on his behalf, or we can request changes. I'm not going to do that in this case. We don't need to worry about it. If this was somebody that we just don't want at our convention, we can decline them. Maybe it's not a good fit for the subject matter. Obviously, this is a game convention. Big John's Comics, being that he is one of the bigger retailers in our area, that's a no-brainer. We're going to approve that. Now, we can approve him to go into a specific zone. As we defined before, we have aisle 100 and aisle 200, or we can approve no zone, in which case he will be able to place himself anywhere we want him to place himself. You can use the exhibitor management system without the booth sales option so that they cannot select their own booths. I don't see why you would do that. This is the entire point of using an exhibitor management system like this is to offload a lot of the work. It's a win-win. You have less work to do, they get more control, and it's all good. But again, if you really want to micromanage it, you can use the exhibitor management approval process and then manually assign booths, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So for now, Big John, he's a big deal in our area, so we're going to go ahead and approve him without a zone. He will be able to select anything he wants. He'll get an email saying you've been approved, and as long as booth sales are enabled, it will also say click here to buy a booth. That would be the same as him coming out here, clicking Exhibit Apply, and then clicking on this booths link. So now I can see that I don't have any booths yet. So I will need to go ahead and add those. I can see what booth types I have. I can see the map for the exhibit hall, and I can scroll down here and I can see that there are plenty of booths available. Now, as Big John, I don't want to have just one booth. I need a big booth. So I'm going to pick up 101, but because the exhibitor management rules are set up such that exhibitors can have as many booths as they want, I'm going to go ahead and take the 3 booths in this corner so I can have a very big booth because that goes with the Big John name. We go over here, 101, 103, 105, that's what we're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and start with 101. I'm going to have some digital signage, so I will need a power outlet. I won't need any extra chairs, but I would like an extra table. And I'm going to want to sell some stuff with credit cards, so I want internet access as well. So then we're here, exhibitor badges. Obviously, Big John needs a badge himself. And then, he probably has some sales associates with him. He might have Sally Neese or Mike Judge, that sort of thing. He's going to bring some people with him. He doesn't want that extra badge, so he's just going to leave it there like it is. But he does want to add some more booths. So he comes back over here, and we can now see that Big John's Comics are, in fact, in charge of booth 101. I'm going to go ahead and add another one. I could add an extra chair there. I could add some more badges. Don't care. So I'm going to go ahead and add another booth and come down here and get 105. So now I have selected my entire list of booths. I am ready to check out, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. You can see in my cart here I've got these badges. They are noted as free because they came with the booth. I also have my big booth, which costs more, and I've got my two littler booths. I've got my add-ons for the different booths that I have. So I'm ready to check out. So I'm going to go ahead and select my credit card, and I will type in my zip code and pay. So now we have a receipt showing us all of our purchases here. If we decided we didn't need the table, we could go ahead and refund that up to the refund date. So under the financial settings, there is a setting specifically for exhibitors to have a separate refund deadline than the normal refund deadline for everything else. If we want to have this at a specific time, we can go ahead and set that at a specific time. So they have until this date to refund now. Let's also take a look at how we can manage exhibitors on behalf of the exhibitors. We have Big John's Comics in here. He has been approved. He filled out his application. We can go in and edit anything we like about him, including his booth. So if we didn't want him to have one, we can remove this. If he paid for it via credit card, it would get refunded when we remove it. We could add extra booths for him. We can go in and edit some options or new badge. We can do that. So we're going to go in here to this booth. He didn't select the extra chair. We're going to give him an extra chair. Anything that we do as an organizer will automatically affect the exhibitor. They will not be paying for it through our system. We are administratively creating these things for him. If we want to charge him, we either then need to invoice him or have him come in and do this, make these changes himself, and then he can pay with his own credit card. So that's it for exhibitor management. But there are a bunch of attendee functions around exhibitors as well. So you can go in and, as an attendee, look at the venue. So you can see the different halls and all the different things that are happening in there. If I go into the Uptown Ballroom, I will get that map, and then I can see what booths are being used by what exhibitors. But if you're just concerned about exhibitors and not where they're located, you can go to the exhibitors list, and it will show their logo here, and then you can either click on their name or click on their logo, and it will show the information that they have input, including we collected their company motto back then, so we have that. So this is just a great way to kind of showcase your exhibitors in a very automated fashion. All the data is there, so let's go ahead and display it. And that is exhibitor management in tabletop events.